Who is really on the chopping block this offseason? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. If you couldn't tell, we are still raising money for the Movember Foundation. We are 2/3 of the way towards our goal of $3,000, and we only got a couple of days left. So if you have not donated, make sure you're using the link in the description, because if we do hit $3,000, one person who donates is going to win opening day tickets. Thank you all very much for those of you who have donated, and I look forward to seeing what we can do by the end of this month. Anyways, this offseason, it's been pretty radio silence on the Red Sox side of things, right? So far, the reports that we've heard from the Boston Red Sox are kind of just simply what the Red Sox are looking for, right? I mean, last offseason, we were hearing reports of the Red Sox taking meetings, the Red Sox pursuing guys. We haven't really heard much of that this offseason, but one thing that has been reported on pretty heavily so far is the Red Sox in the trade market. Not so much who the Red Sox are looking for, but who the Red Sox could end up trading. So I thought this would be kind of a perfect time to go through and create a list of the guys that so far, according to reports, could be on the chopping block for the Boston Red Sox. And I think the best way to do this would be to start with the most obvious names, the names who have been highly linked to trades, and sort of work our way into this wild card range of guys that maybe haven't been mentioned so far, but could be on the block. So let's start there and talk about the most obvious names. I think it's very clear who the most obvious names are for the Boston Red Sox, and that is just simply somebody in this outfield, right? It's maybe the most talked about thing surrounding this Red Sox team right now, but it feels like someone out there is going to get moved this offseason. And recently I've been getting a lot of like, Corbin, you're creating things, or you're just sort of speculating on things. And yeah, to some degree I am speculating on stuff, but at the same time too, I'm not just willing these names into reality here. There's basically everybody is talking about the idea of the Red Sox trading an outfielder. Jeff Passan recently in his latest article said the Red Sox almost surely will deal one of them. There aren't enough bats in the lineup for both, especially if you add another free agent bat. Mark Feinsand, Duran was mentioned in multiple trade rumors last summer. With the Red Sox outfield situation, he would seem to be the most logical candidate to be used in a deal for pitching. Jim Bowden chimed in at the beginning of this offseason saying, regardless, Duran's name keeps coming up in trade rumors, and now it sounds like the Red Sox will move on from him this winter. Really, this entire most obvious section could just be Jarren Duran here, but I did want to include the option of another outfielder as well. Local beat reporters have talked a lot about the fact that it's not just Duran who could be on the chopping block, that really every single one of the Red Sox outfielders has the potential to be moved this offseason. Specifically, there's an article by Chris Cotillo that has kind of stuck with me throughout this offseason as sort of laying the foundation for my beliefs as to where the Red Sox could end up, because in this article, he did mention that the Red Sox are going to explore the trade of one of these guys, not just Duran, but Brayan and even potentially Cedon as well. Although as of late, it feels like the Red Sox are going to be holding on to Cedon, with Core's recent comments and interviews on both foul territory and Section 10, and obviously Jeff Passan's latest article in which he mentions Duran and Brayan by name and kind of excludes Cedon Rafaela from that list. But that there aren't any sort of guarantees, just that these are the most obvious names, especially in a big deal. Right, and I think that's important to remember, that regardless of whether or not these guys are highly connected in trades, doesn't mean they're going to get moved. How many years in a row have we talked about the idea of the Red Sox trading Duran? Right, it's basically been since before the 2024 season that, you know, every offseason, every deadline, Jarren Duran's name gets brought up, and yet he's still here with the Boston Red Sox. So I wouldn't be going around saying that these are 100%, just that these are the most likely names. In all honesty, the reason these guys have been listed is because of a very simple reason. It's because the Red Sox are going to need to use the trade market to acquire everything they want this offseason, right? We've talked about this 1,000 times. Unless the Red Sox are willing to put $500 million, probably more, on the table here this offseason, you're not going to be able to get the two bats you need, the one starting pitcher you need, potentially even a reliever that you need, right? You're going to have to branch into the trade market to do that. And the most obvious place to go to is to use the deepest part of your team. And right now you've got 4, 5, potentially even 6 everyday major league outfielders on your roster. You could trade one of these guys in a headline move and still be able to maintain production in that outfield. I think that's why we're seeing a whole lot of conversations about the Red Sox trading one of these players. Now, in terms of other names in this obvious section, I think Justinson Garcia, the password, obviously is going to be in this section as well. He's kind of lumped in to this outfield group that could be potentially traded from. I think he's roadblocked beyond all roadblocks to get to the major league level at this point in his career. I just don't see him as sort of the headliner for a deal, so I didn't want to put him into the same category as Duran and Cedon and Willie Abreu. The other name I'm going to put in this list, but sort of like a 1A, 1B type conversation, is Triston Casas. And really the only reason I'm putting Triston Casas in here is because of the fact that we have had an article talking about the fact that the Red Sox could potentially look to move him, right? He's the only other name outside of these three that have been legitimately, hey, this is a name the Red Sox are listening on, but I just think he's a little bit down the list in terms of headliners that the Red Sox could end up using. Then you take sort of a step below that one. The names that could make sense to move in a deal, but we haven't heard a crazy connection to. And I think ultimately what this category could really be called is the Red Sox need to utilize some of their pitching depth, right? Last offseason, we saw the Red Sox make a really big trade with a lot of the position players in the Red Sox farm system. I mean, they traded away 2 of their top 5 position player prospects last offseason. In my opinion, I don't think if you're going to make another big move like this, that it's going to be centered around one of your bigger position player prospects, just because you're starting to have less and less of that. I mean, you take a look at the Red Sox top 5, 10 prospects on SoxProspects.com, the best place to go for Sox prospect news here. 2 of them are position players, right? The rest are pitching prospects, and I think this is where you're going to see, if the Red Sox do make a big deal, sort of the complementary piece to the headliner included in this. I'm talking names like Payton Tolle, Luis Paredes, Kyson Witherspoon, even Conley early. Potentially even a name like Juan Valera or Brandon Clark could be on the table here. It's the kind of conversation we had last year with the position player guys. Not every single one of these players is going to be able to be a big name in the Sox rotation. If you can identify the right names that you think are going to be able to do that, you have a whole lot of really impressive talent that can land you someone else that you think could have a large major league impact, right? Pairing one of these outfielders with one of these pitching prospects, and all of a sudden you've got a better package than I would say, 90% of Major League Baseball, right? It's going to be really hard for other teams to match a package of Jarren Duran and Payton Tolle. It fits a lot of categories here, right? Potential top rotation type talent paired with a Major League ready outfielder who has some pedigree. Yeah, that's a really, really big haul for a team looking to trade somebody. Now, I'm also going to include in sort of this, I wouldn't say guarantee conversation, I wouldn't say obvious conversation. This isn't Wildcard either, though, is the fact that I don't think any of these prospects are really safe this offseason, right? Last year, you had a kind of conversation where it was like, okay, the Red Sox could trade anybody from this farm system. It's just not going to be Roman Anthony. And I don't think you have that same situation this year. I think names like Payton Tolle and Conley Early are at the top here, and those are the guys who are going to be worth a lot more than any other player in this farm system right now, but I also don't think they're immovable either. If you move one of these guys because you're confident the other one is going to be the name that's going to be the breakout star in your rotation this year, I think the Red Sox are going to be willing to do that, even in the position player side of things. I mean, Franklin Arias is your number 2 prospect right now. I don't think anyone in this video, either watching it or talking about it or whatever, is sitting here saying that Franklin Arias is an immovable object. So I think prospect-wise, it's just about everybody. It just depends on what kind of conversation you're looking to have in terms of the trade you're actually wanting to make. Finally, we have this sort of wild card conversation, right? Where it's guys who, feel like they're going to be here in this organization for at least the 2026 season. There hasn't really been any sort of substantiated rumors about the idea that these guys are going to be moved, but feels like there's a potential that if a trade comes along, the Red Sox won't totally disavow it until they've actually kind of gone through all the scenarios here. And I think the first name in this sort of wild card range is Marcelo Meyer. It feels like he's a player that the Sox like the fit of, that he's going to be with this team in 2026, but I still think the right deal comes along and the Red Sox are absolutely willing to let him go. I just think that they are going to try pretty hard to stick to areas of depth to trade from on the MLB roster, and the sort of second base, shortstop, third base mold here is not exactly the most lucrative position for the Red Sox right now, right? Plus, Marcelo Meyer has the injury risk as well, and I think there's a part of this where his value has been dragged down quite a bit because of the fact that he's been injured over the last few seasons. So Christian Campbell Campbell is another one I think that falls into this list a little bit. And to me, it feels like there's a real chance the Red Sox are at least thinking about this. He doesn't have a home right now. The performance wasn't great at the major league level. He is under a cost-controlled contract. I understand right now it's looking like a little bit of an albatross contract to a lot of people, but you're not really paying him a lot of money. Even if he ends up being a utility guy, you're still probably saving money in the long run. He just simply feels like a guy that if the Red Sox could move, they might. However, all evidence is kind of pointing to the contrary right now. The Red Sox have been pretty hell-bent on making him work. Alex Cora confirmed on Section 10 that Christian Campbell's actually going to be playing winter ball in Puerto Rico this offseason. They've made a real point to talk about the work he's put in this offseason, right? Whether it be transitioning to the outfield, whether it be coming into the offseason bigger, stronger. Now, this could all be positioning themselves in order to make him look more valuable on the trade market, but I also think there's a large part of this organization that feels as though they made a commitment to this guy and they want to make sure that he works. And finally, I think in terms of wild cards here, one that I'm going to throw out here that really truly is a wild card in my opinion is Brayan Bello. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous considering the fact that the Red Sox are trying to take a step forward in their rotation, and trading Brayan Bello feels like it'd be taking a step backwards. But if we think about it a little bit here, teams in Major League Baseball who are looking to trade, let's say, number 2 starters or really ace starters that you can pair with Garrett Crochet at the top of this order, could be looking for a pitcher in return, right? And potentially they could be looking for a major league pitcher in return with more control and it's more cost effective. Some teams may not want to take a risk on a prospect. Some teams want a surefire thing, and Brayan Bello is absolutely a surefire major league pitcher, right? This season, I think he proved at the bare minimum he's a number 3 pitcher in Major League Baseball. If Brayan Bello's your number 3 or number 4 starter, and you've got 2 or 3 guys ahead of him that are more talented or potentially better than him, you have a World Series winning rotation. I don't think that's crazy to say. So I think there could be some interest from other teams. I don't know how much the Red Sox would be willing to do this, and it would require them to actually go out and get 2 legitimate big name starting pitchers this offseason, which would just make their offseason a bit harder. But I also don't know how much the Red Sox are sitting here saying Brayan Bello is untouchable. The only other names I'm going to mention in this video are sort of the pie sweetener names. The guys who, they're not going to make the headlines. They're not going to be the guys who get you the number 2 starter, but could be a guy that you sit here and you say, okay, yeah, he could be included in a deal at some point to really sort of sweeten the pots. I'm talking guys like Mikey Romero, Vaughn Grissom, potentially Nate Eden or Nick Sogard, David Hamilton as well, Kyle Harrison, Richard Fitz, right? There are a ton of guys in this category. It's basically anyone who you think the Red Sox could end up moving. Overall, honestly, I think this list is incredibly long, right? I think some people are going to sit there and say, Corbin, you didn't exactly tell me who the Red Sox are trading. You just named every single guy in the Red Sox roster, and that's for a very specific reason. That's because I think the Red Sox are going to be open to a whole lot of different ways to transform both this lineup and this rotation, right? I think they're looking at, again, what they've been telling us for the last couple of months here as their window of contention, as this, they sort of built themselves up as an organization. Now it's time to go. Now it's time to see actual results. And I think what that requires is being flexible with this roster, right? Trying to figure out what the best way to add to it will be. And to me, that means that there's only a couple of guys whose names are fully off the table right now. If you want my list of those guys, I think it's 5 players. I think obviously it's Garrett Crochet, Roman Anthony. You were not trading those guys for anybody but Shohei Ohtani and Paul Skeens, right? And even then, I don't know that you trade him for Paul Skeens. The other names I think are Carlos Narvaez, just because you don't have really any catching depth in the entire system, and this guy sort of transformed your catching position last season. And then I think it's Whitlock and Chapman. You need those 2 in the back end of your bullpen. Outside of that, I think everybody on this team and really everybody in this organization has some sort of price on their head that the Red Sox would be willing to let them go for. It all just sort of varies on a scale here, and I think that's the right way to go about it, right? By limiting who you're going to want to trade this offseason, you are limiting the amount of opportunities that can present themselves. If you put everybody on the table outside of a couple of guys, you're able to sort of survey the market a whole lot better. I think that's why we're seeing names like Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida be put onto this trading block so early this offseason. It's because the Red Sox want to open up roster space, want to get flexible, and all of these names can help you do that. So it's going to be incredibly fascinating to see what ends up happening with the Red Sox here, but there are clearly some names, in my opinion, that feel more likely than others. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? What do you think about this list I created? Is there anyone that I missed? Is Masataka Yoshida a guy at the top of your list list right now saying the Red Sox are definitely going to trade this guy. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Simply helps these videos out a ton. It's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.